Hello, my dear friend, curious soul and sensitive heart. Are you ready to hear a story that will make you believe, once again, in unwavering justice and the indomitable strength of the human spirit? Because today, I bring you a breathtaking tale, a moving testimony of how truth, like a diamond hidden in the hardest rock, always emerges to shine with its own light. The face of the arrogant Ricardo Montalvo contorted into a grimace of absolute disbelief and terror, his skin paling until it became almost translucent, as a familiar and firm hand rose among the bidders. That of Camila Morales, the very woman he had contemptuously thrown out onto the street just a year earlier, now there, imposing, ready to snatch away his last possession. Camila Morales, at 31, carried on her shoulders the invisible weight of a life marked by resilience and incessant struggle. It was not a weight of gold, but one of silent responsibility, of the perpetual absence of her parents, deceased in an accident years ago, leaving her in charge of her grandmother and younger sister, and of the tacit promise to care for every fiber of her family. Her grandmother, Elena, an elderly woman with a tired smile and hands trembling from arthritis, but with an unbreakable spirit, was her beacon. And her younger sister Liliana, a promising young musician at the conservatory, was her reason to persist. For many, in the exclusive urbanization El Pinar, where she had resided her entire life, Camila was little more than a decorative figure in the background, an extension of her humble family of gardeners and cooks who served the wealthy. Her job at the Montalvo mansion, one of the most ostentatious in the area, as a maintenance assistant and gardener, was a euphemism for endless ungrateful and forgotten tasks. Where her true talent, an almost mystical ability to organize, manage, and optimize resources, went unnoticed, relegated to the darkest corners of servitude. She rose every morning before dawn, when the Montalvo mansion still slept under a veil of opulent silence. The faint morning light filtered through the cracks of her small window, revealing motes of dust dancing in the air. Her room, a small annex at the back of the property, adjacent to the servants' quarters, was modest, with thin walls that let through the early morning murmurs of the staff and a single window overlooking the service yard, where the smell of chlorine and detergent was constant. Her hands, despite her youth, were slightly calloused from the constant handling of garden tools, the brush of rose thorns, and the cleaning of the most inaccessible corners, where dust seemed to cling viciously. Her clothes, though immaculately clean and ironed by herself with an almost obsessive care, always had that look of having been worn 1,000 times, of being too simple, too functional for the pristine, ostentatious, and often ridiculous environment of El Pinar, where every garment and every jewel screamed its price. As she crossed the impeccable cobblestone paths, bordered by perfectly trimmed hedges that she herself maintained, she blended in with the mass of lower-ranking employees, a shadow among shadows in the polished marble hallways and silk-lined rooms, where her presence was as imperceptible as the air. The glances from the owners and their children, the barely whispered yet audibly hurtful comments, were piercing, though never directed at her, always veiled in a condescension that burned her inside. There goes the garden flower, always with that funeral face, as if carrying the weight of the world. Marina Montalvo, Ricardo's eldest daughter and owner of exasperating condescension, had snapped one day. Marina, a woman in her 20s with impeccable hair, designer clothes that looked fresh off a runway, and a superficiality that chilled her to the bone, always found a way to humiliate her with her veiled cruelty. That day, Marina had accidentally spilled a glass of red wine on Camila's linen skirt, while Camila served appetizers at one of the mansion's countless empty parties. The crimson liquid spread quickly across the light fabric, staining it with shame. Oops, how clumsy you are, Camilla. You seem to have butterfingers today. But don't worry. I'm sure with your cleaning skills you can remove that stain, right? Or maybe you should look for a job where you don't ruin people's clothes. Hush. She's so careless. The cruel, hollow laughter echoed through the spacious hall, mingling with the clinking of glasses, and several of the guests who witnessed the scene averted their gaze, uncomfortable or perhaps complicit in their silence, afraid of falling out of favor with the Montalvos. Camilla felt a blush of shame creep up her neck, the cold of the stain seeping into her skin, but even more, the sting of humiliation, that invisible wound that would not heal. Her fist clenched almost imperceptibly beneath the silver tray, her nails digging into her palm. Hold on, Camilla. Just hold on. For Liliana, for Grandma, for the memory of my parents who always taught me the dignity of work, she repeated, a silent litany in her mind. Bile rose in her throat, but she controlled it with superhuman effort, maintaining a professional, empty smile on her lips. Her eyes, however, gleamed with a silent promise, a spark of fire that no one could see. On one occasion, during a planning meeting for a charity event, one of those where the Montalvos sought social recognition more than actual help, Camilla had proposed an ingenious and low-cost solution for guest logistics, one that optimized transport routes, minimized waste, and saved a considerable sum on catering. Her idea, based on her deep knowledge of the property, its local suppliers, and people's movements, would have greatly benefited the charitable cause the Montalvos claimed to support, freeing up funds for those in need. But as she outlined her plan with restrained passion, her voice vibrating with logic and efficiency, Ricardo Montalvo, the family patriarch and owner of the mansion, a man with slicked-back silver hair and a haughty gaze that always made her feel insignificant, interrupted her with a dismissive wave of his jeweled hand. "Camilla, Camilla," he said, his voice deep and condescending, laden with an innate superiority that crushed her. "We appreciate your initiative. But what we need here are classy, elegant, high-level solutions, not savings that border on vulgarity or improvisation. Your ideas, though practical, lack the distinction and sophistication that an event of our category requires. Let the professionals handle it. You stick to your own work." Then, Mr. Montalvo turned to his wife, who had barely contributed an original idea, and effusively congratulated her on a generic and costly proposal from an event company. "That's the vision, dear. The future of philanthropy with style." Camilla felt a sharp pang in her chest, as if an invisible dagger had pierced her, chilling her heart and soul. Her words choked, her mind screamed with frustration at the blindness, ignorance, and arrogance of those who believed themselves superior. Her throat tightened, preventing her from uttering the defense she wanted to snap back, the pain of injustice choking her, the feeling of being invisible, of her intelligence and effort being deliberately ignored and belittled due to her social position, was a slow poison that consumed her from within, day after day. Even in the kitchen, her domain and work refuge, classism manifested incessantly, whispering and laughing behind her back. As Camilla prepared her modest meals in the employee corner, a simple bowl of lentil soup or a frugal vegetable stew enveloped in the aroma of her grandmother's spices, she listened to the Montalvo ladies nonchalantly discussing their recent purchases at the most exclusive boutiques in Paris, or their extravagant remodeling plans for rooms they barely used, or that didn't even exist. Their laughter, hollow and empty, echoed in the spacious area, mingling with the clinking of porcelain dishes, contrasting with the solitary silence of her thoughts and the echo of her own frustrations. She felt like a stranger in her own life. A ghost in the heart of the opulence, she kept running. The feeling of isolation and underestimation was a constant bite at her spirit. It's not fair, she thought, slowly chewing her tasteless food, her eyes fixed on the window overlooking the gardens she cultivated. They have everything and don't even value the talent that could give them more, or the hard work that sustains them. They only see money, not ingenuity, nor the dignity of labor, nor the effort of others. This daily humiliation, the forced invisibility to which she was subjected by the Montalvos and their circle, fueled a slow but constant fire of determination within her, a silent and powerful desire to prove her true worth, not only for herself, but for those who depended on her. For grandmother Elena and for Liliana. Liliana, her sister, was her light in the darkness, her deepest motivation, her reason for being. She, with her musical talent, was a delicate but strong soul who looked at her with an admiration Camilla felt undeserved. Liliana's dreams of studying abroad, at a prestigious music academy in Vienna, were the engine that drove Camilla to endure every humiliation, every scorn, every injustice. She wanted for Liliana a future far from the shadows of others' mansions, a future where her talent would shine without limits. Grandmother Elena, with her silent wisdom and unwavering faith, constantly reminded her, stroking her face, "My child, dignity is not given by money, but by the heart you carry, and yours is pure. God does not forget the righteous, much less those who work with honesty." Those words, whispered in the raspy voice of age, were her balm, her breath, her reason to fight one more day. She promised herself, with a silent oath in her heart, that Liliana would not suffer the same humiliations she did. The day everything changed arrived with the coldness of an unexpected blow, a masterstroke of cruelty. Ricardo Montalvo, with an even more arrogant smile than usual, and a gaze that shone with a perverse satisfaction, called her to his office, a place Camilla rarely set foot in, a sanctum of power and secrets. The office, with its thick emerald green velvet curtains that blocked out the sunlight, its shelves overflowing with books that probably no one read, and the pungent smell of expensive tobacco and aged whiskey, was a sanctuary of power and of a luxury that suffocated. "Camilla," Ricardo said, playing with a solid silver letter opener, his nails impeccably polished. His voice was calm, almost complacent. "My wife and I have decided that, unfortunately, we no longer require your services. We have found someone more suitable for our current needs, more exclusive. And, by the way, the servants' room where you currently reside will also be needed by our new staff, who require more space and privacy. You have exactly 24 hours to vacate the property. I hope you find a place where you can be more happy, with less dust, perhaps, and fewer obligations. This is a favor, consider it so." Ricardo's voice was a silk whip, each word a direct stab to the heart, more painful than a physical blow. There was no real reason, no warning, no severance pay, just the rawest and cruelest of humiliations, wrapped in a false cloak of courtesy. Camilla's breath caught in her throat, like a trapped bird. Her mind clouded. The world around her began to spin, the office furniture seeming to dance in a whirlwind. 24 hours? To throw her and her vulnerable family out onto the street just like that? Panic seized her, a glacial chill running through her veins, a tight knot in her stomach that kept her from breathing. Bile rose in her throat. How? Why? What would she tell Liliana and her grandmother? Where would they go? Every sacrifice, every humiliation endured, every unpaid extra hour, every effort to keep their house clean and the garden blooming. Was it all vanishing in an instant, at the whim of a cruel man? The image of her grandmother, her worried and disoriented eyes, and Liliana, so fragile yet with such big and precious dreams, projected into her mind, more vivid than ever. What would she tell them? How would she look them in the eye, admitting her failure? Her reputation, her future, everything she had built with such effort, was shattered in an instant. She felt dizzy, the office walls seeming to close in on her, suffocating her. Shame and rage burned in her chest, a toxic mixture that choked her, leaving her breathless. She felt like a failure, the worst kind of person, unable to protect her family. Her dreams had become her worst nightmare. As she gathered her few belongings in the servants' room, her hands trembled uncontrollably, unable to hold the few things she owned. Outside, the Montalvo mansion seemed to mock her with its imposing luxury, its windows gleaming like judgmental eyes. A choked cry escaped Camilla's lips as she saw Marina Montalvo's smirk peering from the living room window as she watched her leave with her small travel suitcase, her life's only luggage. The humiliation was total, the sting of pain deeper than ever. But then, as she closed the wrought iron gate of the property for the last time, the cold metal against her fingers, a fleeting thought crossed her mind. An Ariadne's thread that appeared amidst the chaos of her despair. She had heard rumors in the kitchen, among the cooks and staff, about Ricardo Montalvo's hidden financial problems, about his strange businesses that weren't prospering and his high-interest loans that were choking him like a rope. There was a strange clause in the contract for the mansion's last mortgage loan, which she had seen by chance on Ricardo's desk, a paper containing a series of figures that caught her attention due to their imbalance, due to the illogical nature of their sums. It was a minuscule detail, an anomaly in an exorbitant sum that her mathematical mind had detected. Her mind, trained to find efficiency and logic in systems, had noticed the imbalance at that moment, but had dismissed it as an unimportant error for her, an error of the rich that she wouldn't understand. Now, that small detail, that mathematical discrepancy, became a spark of hope, a faint light in the darkness. The seed of change had been sown, fertilized by the visceral pain of injustice and the promise of revenge. "This won't stand, Ricardo Montalvo," Camilla murmured, her voice barely a whisper, carried by the wind. But her determination was already a burning, unquenchable flame in her heart. Her eyes, though moist with suppressed tears, shone with a new and dangerous light, the light of justice to come. After the initial shock and the brutality of being expelled from the only home she had ever known, Camilla, Liliana, and Grandma Elena were forced to seek refuge in a small, dilapidated apartment in a humble, forgotten neighborhood, far from the opulence of El Pinar and the whispers of the wealthy. The apartment walls were paper-thin, letting through the noise of neighbors, crying children, and blaring music. The smell of dampness was constant, a sticky presence that clung to clothes and skin. Grandma's bed, which previously rested in a quiet, well-ventilated space, was now squeezed against a window overlooking a noisy alley full of trash and unpleasant odors. Camilla felt suffocated, not only by the narrowness of the space, but by the shame and anguish that consumed her. The sight of Liliana trying to practice her violin in the small space, with the constant distraction of the street and the echo of their former life, broke her heart into 1,000 pieces. Her own hands trembled as she prepared their meager meals, her muscles aching and her joints sore from the new, strenuous cleaning job she had found, barely paid enough to survive. It was a low blow, a constant slap of reality that haunted her. Had this been Ricardo Montalvo's will? to see her suffer, humiliated, in misery? The thought instilled in her a cold rage. Camilla spent hours at the small kitchen table, surrounded by empty coffee cups and dry bread crumbs, while her family slept in the next room. With the help of an old laptop borrowed from a neighbor who had been moved by her story, she plunged into a feverish search for evidence. She delved into online public databases, local news archives dating back decades, and dark economy and real estate forums. Her mind, which had previously untangled logistical and maintenance systems in the Montalvo mansion with an almost innate efficiency, now applied that same relentless logic to the chaos of the real estate market and shady finances. The figure, that imbalance in Montalvo's loan that she had seen on the desk, was her only thread, her particular Ariadne's thread, in a labyrinth of numbers and legal clauses. The process of transformation, investigation, preparation. Camilla's path was arduous, paved with frustration, despair, and almost superhuman perseverance. Obstacle 1. The bureaucratic wall and the slavery of money. Every attempt to access legal or financial information about the Montalvo mansion and its illicit dealings was an unbreakable wall, an impenetrable fortress. Lawyers consulted by phone dragged their feet, promising appointments that never materialized. The few free consultations she managed offered only vague generalities, superficial advice that led nowhere. She felt alone, minuscule, overwhelmed by the immensity of the legal system and the crushing lack of resources. This is impossible, she thought, burying her head in her hands, physical and mental exhaustion weighing on her like a concrete slab on her chest. Her body ached from accumulated tension, every muscle vibrating with stress. Frustration burned her throat, leaving her almost voiceless. Was it really worth it? Could a simple gardener like me stand up to a man like Ricardo Montalvo, with his army of expensive lawyers and his political and social influence? Despair was a bottomless pit, and she felt herself drowning in it. Internal monologue 1. I can't give up. Not after what he did to me. Not after what he did to my family. Grandma coughs more because of the dampness in this apartment. Her eyes have less sparkle. Liliana can't concentrate on her music. Her violin sounds sad in this space. I have to find a way. I have to be smarter than them. More cunning, more relentless. It's not just about the house. It's about my dignity, my family's dignity. Every moment they made us feel less. But how? With what? I have no money, no contacts, no power. I only have my mind and my fury. But fury can be a good engine, right? A force that propels you. If I can connect these pieces, if I can understand how he got into so much debt, I can find a crack. Just one crack is all I need. Her gaze fell on an old economics book she had found in a second-hand bookstore. Its pages worn but full of knowledge. She decided the library would be her new school. Overcoming Obstacle 1. The encounter with Doña Rosa and the beginning of learning. One afternoon, as Camilla cleaned the dusty shelves of a public library to earn a few extra pesos, exhaustion weighing on her eyelids and her mind wandering through numbers, a kind but firm voice pulled her out of her thoughts. It was Doña Rosa, an elderly woman with silver hair neatly tied in a bun, dressed modestly but with innate elegance, who had been a renowned civil rights and corporate lawyer in her youth. Doña Rosa, who was a regular library visitor and a keen observer, had noticed Camilla on several occasions, always with her notebooks full of numbers and economic diagrams, studying with a surprising intensity for a mere cleaning lady. Camilla, ashamed of her tired appearance and her dust-stained hands, tried to hide her notes. "Don't worry, my dear," said Doña Rosa, her voice soft as a summer breeze, her smile maternal. I've seen your tenacity. And I've seen what you study. You don't seem to be merely cleaning dust, do you? Those equations aren't for cleaning. A knowing smile played on her lips. Camilla, surprised and touched by the understanding, told her story, her eyes filled with suppressed tears that threatened to overflow. Doña Rosa listened attentively, her gaze turning grave upon hearing Ricardo Montalvo's name. Ah, Montalvo, an unscrupulous shark. I know his type. Always seeking profit at others' expense, trampling anyone necessary. But I also know his weaknesses. His arrogance is his greatest Achilles heel. Doña Rosa offered Camilla not money, but something far more valuable. Her vast knowledge of financial law, real estate, and legal strategies. Her valuable contacts in the legal and financial world, and her unwavering wisdom. Come to my house every afternoon after your jobs. I will teach you to read between the lines, to find the ghosts in the numbers, to unmask the vultures that feed on others' despair. I will teach you to fight on their own ground with their own weapons. That night, Camilla did not sleep. She had found a mentor, a beacon in her darkness. The spark of hope had turned into a flame. The hidden treasure emerges. Camilla's financial brain. Under Doña Rosa's expert tutelage, Camilla's hidden talent for numbers and finance, her almost supernatural intuition for unraveling complex systems and detecting anomalies, blossomed like a flower in the desert. It turned out that Camilla possessed an exceptional photographic memory for figures, contractual details, and financial structures, a skill she had unconsciously developed while reviewing invoices and budgets in the Montalvo mansion. Furthermore, her mind could visualize complex financial networks as if they were intricate maps, detecting imbalances and weaknesses where others only saw opaque reports and mountains of paper. Doña Rosa was astonished, her eyes shining with genuine admiration. Camilla, you are a prodigy. You see patterns where financial experts only see chaos. Your mind is a precision machine. This is a gift, my dear, an invaluable gift. With this, we can destroy Montalvo and his web of lies. Camilla, amazed by the revelation of her own power, realized that what she considered a mere obsession with order and numbers was actually a superpower. She felt empowered, a latent force that had finally found its course, an unstoppable tide. Deep investigation and Montalvo's hidden network. Camilla and Doña Rosa embarked on an exhaustive and secretive investigation. They discovered that Ricardo Montalvo was not only an arrogant man, but his finances were on the brink of collapse due to a series of bad investments abroad, failed pyramid schemes, and an ambitious, yet catastrophic real estate project that had consumed his fortune. His mansion, the symbol of his status and pride, was mortgaged to the hilt, with an exorbitant interest loan from a dubious private lender. The clause Camilla had noticed on that paper, that unbalanced figure, was a clear sign that the loan was structured predatorily, with an accelerated maturity date in case of even a minimal default or breach. Montalvo, in his arrogance and greed, had been tricked by his own avarice, falling into his own trap. The mansion, it seemed, was about to be repossessed and auctioned by his creditors, a cruel irony of fate, a stroke of luck for Camilla, if one could call justice that. Obstacle 2. Infiltration and the secret archive. They needed irrefutable proof of Montalvo's true financial state and his illicit dealings. Public documentation was not enough. Doña Rosa, with her experience, suggested infiltrating the old law firm that handled his shadiest and most hidden business. It was risky, almost impossible, a mission worthy of a spy movie. Camilla felt an icy knot in her stomach. But how, Doña Rosa? It's a fortress with 24-hour security and surveillance systems. And if they recognize me, the thought of being discovered terrified her. Internal monologue 2. This is too risky. If they discover me, it's all over. Not just for me, but for Doña Rosa, who has risked her reputation for me. For Liliana, who dreams of a future. For Grandma, who only deserves peace. What if Montalvo recognizes me? What if he accuses me of theft or trespassing? My life would be ruined forever. But if we don't do it, we won't have enough evidence. And he will remain unpunished. He will continue to trample on people. He will continue to laugh in his mansion. I have to be brave. I have to remember every corner of that mansion, every one of Ricardo's habits, every blind spot in the security. I am an expert in the shadows, a specialist in going unnoticed, in being invisible. I can do it. For all those who suffered from his greed, for the home he took from us, for justice. Her gaze hardened. Adrenaline began to pump through her veins, dispelling the fear. Overcoming obstacle 2, the infiltration plan and the unexpected ally. It was then that Doña Rosa remembered Leo. Leo, a brilliant young man in IT. A former client of hers whom she had helped in a cyberbullying case years ago. Leo was an ethical hacker with unwavering morals and a supernatural ability to navigate the most complex computer networks. Doña Rosa introduced Camila to him in a discreet cafe. Leo, intrigued by Camila's story and with an innate contempt for power abusers, immediately agreed to help. I love dismantling bullies, Doña Rosa, he said with a smile. Together, they devised a bold and meticulous plan. Camila, using her knowledge of the law firm's cleaning routines, which she had subtly acquired while doing extra cleaning jobs in the building to go unnoticed. And Leo, with his computer skills to circumvent the security systems, managed to access Montalvo's lawyer's database overnight. Camila, her heart pounding 1,000 beats per hour, cold sweat beading on her forehead as her skillful fingers navigated through the files. She searched for Ricardo's dossier. She found it, a hidden and encrypted file, under the code name Operation Phoenix, which detailed not only the predatory loan, but a series of real estate scams Ricardo had committed in the past, using the same modus operandi of deception and dispossession. It was pure gold, the definitive proof they needed to destroy him. The cold air of the office, the dim light of the computer screen, the constant hum of the computer. Everything was etched into her memory, a symphony of justice. Obstacle 3. The partner's betrayal. A week before the auction of the Montalvo mansion, an anonymous letter arrived at Doña Rosa's office. It contained a copy of a compromising email between Ricardo Montalvo and one of his former partners, a Mr. Vargas, in which Montalvo openly mocked the debt Vargas had forgiven him years ago, a debt that had been crucial to saving the Vargas family from financial ruin. Ricardo was not only a swindler and a tyrant, but a hypocritical traitor who scoffed at others' kindness. This betrayal, though not directly related to Camila at the time, added a new dimension to Montalvo's moral depravity. Camila's revenge extended beyond herself. It was now for all those who had been trampled by Ricardo. Internal monologue 3. This man has no limits. Not only did he humiliate me, throw me out on the street and mock my suffering, but now he mocks the kindness of others. Debt forgiven, he says, with contempt. What infamy! What baseness! This isn't just for me. It's for everyone who has been trampled by people like him, for those who have been deceived and betrayed. We must expose every one of his lies, every one of his vile acts. This will bring him lower than ever, lower than he ever imagined. But who is Mr. Vargas? Could he help us? Could this betrayal be the last piece of the puzzle? Camilla's fury was tempered by strategic curiosity, a spark of genius. She needed to know more about this Mr. Vargas. Overcoming Obstacle 3. The connection with Mr. Vargas and the Billionaires Alliance. Doña Rosa, with her vast network of contacts in legal and financial circles, discovered that Mr. Vargas was, in reality, the billionaire Alejandro Vargas, an eccentric and highly respected businessman known for his discretion and immense fortune, but above all, for his integrity. And most importantly, he was a philanthropist who had discreetly helped many families who had been victims of scammers like Montalvo without seeking recognition. Doña Rosa, with a mixture of audacity and hope, sent a letter to Alejandro Vargas attaching proof of Montalvo's betrayal, the letter where he mocked him. The reply came in less than 24 hours, an invitation to a private meeting in his office in the city's tallest tower. Vargas was furious about the betrayal, a debt he had forgiven in an act of compassion and trust. His honor had been tarnished. "Miss Morales, Doña Rosa," Vargas said, his voice calm but with a chilling coldness that froze the blood. "Ricardo Montalvo will pay for this, and not just for his betrayal of me, but for the injustice he did to you. You will have my unconditional support. My resources, my influence, my lawyers are entirely at your disposal. Montalvo will meet a fate he never imagined." The alliance was forged, a pact sealed in the fire of justice. The machinery of vindication was set in motion. The tension reached palpable levels as the auction date for the Montalvo mansion approached. Ricardo, for his part, moved in a whirlwind of desperation. The calls from his bankers were constant and threatening. His partners avoided him as if he were a pariah. His face, once a paradigm of arrogance and security, now showed deep dark circles, a sallow complexion, and constant irritability that he could barely contain. The facade of untouchability he projected was crumbling rapidly, revealing underlying fear. Rumors of his bankruptcy spread like wildfire in social circles. Minor confrontation. 1. Montalvo's desperate attempt. One morning, Camilla's phone vibrated with an unknown number. It was Ricardo Montalvo. His voice, once haughty and authoritative, now sounded hoarse with desperation and something that seemed like fear. "Camilla, I need a favor. I know you're good with numbers, that you're skilled with those things. My mansion is going to auction. I need you to help me find a quick buyer, someone who will pay well, very well. I promise to give you a generous commission, and I'll even get you a job at a good company. Anyone you want, I'll give you a personal recommendation." Ricardo's cynicism was nauseating, a slap to her dignity. Camilla felt a wave of disgust so intense she almost vomited. After everything he had done to her, throwing her out on the street, now he was asking for help. Her fist clenched under the table, her nails digging into her palm. "I'm sorry, Mr. Montalvo," Camilla replied, her voice cold and professional without a hint of emotion. "I no longer work for you. My professional services are dedicated to nobler causes, and I am not interested in your financial affairs. I suggest you hire a true professional if you have any money left for it, or if anyone else wants to work for a cheat." The rage in Ricardo's voice on the other end of the line was palpable, a choked roar. "Damn it, Camilla! You'll regret this. You're going to pay for this." He abruptly hung up. Camilla felt a tremor in her hands, but also a bitter, deep satisfaction. It was the first sign of his real vulnerability and his dissent. Minor confrontation 2. The encounter with Marina. One day, as Camilla, now dressed in a discreet but elegant outfit, a perfectly tailored pantsuit that fit her like a glove, accompanied Mr. Vargas to a high-level investor meeting, she ran into Marina Montalvo in the elevator of a corporate building. Marina, with her usual air of superiority, looked her up and down with disdain, her eyes scanning her clothes for any imperfection. "But what are you doing here, Camilla? Are you cleaning the bathrooms in this tower? I hope they at least pay you more for your effort in such a luxurious place." Her voice was a mocking whisper, laden with venom. Camilla, with a serene smile that didn't reach her eyes, but conveyed unwavering confidence, replied, "No, Miss Montalvo. I am here for a business meeting with Mr. Vargas. Matters that you, perhaps, wouldn't understand. Life takes many turns, don't you think?" The mention of Mr. Vargas and Camilla's tone of quiet authority made Marina's smile falter. Her face, initially petulant, showed a hint of surprise, then discomfort, then growing unease. She, always so self-assured, felt disoriented, her world teetering. Camilla felt a small triumph, a confirmation that she was always on the right track. Camilla's internal monologue. "They know I'm close. They can smell it, like dogs scenting fear. Desperation is consuming them from within. But they don't know how or why. They think I'm the same Camilla from before, the one they could walk all over and humiliate at will. But they have underestimated me for the last time. I'm afraid, yes, afraid that something will go wrong at the last minute. Afraid of the repercussions, afraid that my family will suffer again. But my determination is greater, stronger than any fear. This is my chance, the only one. For every tear of Grandma, for every dream Liliana had to postpone, for every humiliation I silently endured in that mansion. Ricardo, this time, you will pay for everything, for every small injustice. Your fall will be as spectacular as your rise." Her heart pounded, a war drum beating in her ears. The auction room of the prestigious Christie's house, an imposing space with glass walls offering panoramic city views, was brimming with an almost electric tension. It was no ordinary auction. It was the event of the year in the luxury real estate world. And the highlight was, ironically, Ricardo Montalvo's mansion in El Pinar. The height of irony. The atmosphere was so dense it could almost be cut with a butter knife. In the center of the room, with a haggard and sweaty expression, Ricardo Montalvo, accompanied by a pale and silent Marina, tried to project a calm he didn't feel, his body trembling slightly. His eyes, bloodshot from sleepless nights, desperately searched the crowd for a generous bidder who would save him from imminent ruin, a guardian angel. He knew the press whispered about his impending financial collapse, and his once impeccable reputation hung by a thread as thin as a hair. His world was crumbling before his very eyes. Seated at the far end of the room, with a glacial, analytical expression, was Mr. Santiago Guzman, the ruthless private lender who had foreclosed on Montalvo's mortgage, a man known for his lack of mercy and his shark-like gaze. His eyes, piercing like laser beams, scrutinized Montalvo's every gesture, every sign of desperation, reveling in his agony. Beside him, his team of lawyers, their faces tense and serious, reviewed their tablets, confirming the gravity of Ricardo's situation, ready to collect every last cent. The auctioneer, a burly man with a deep, resonant voice, began the bidding for the Montalvo mansion with a sharp rap of his gavel. The starting price was low, reflecting the urgency of the sale and the rumors of financial troubles surrounding Ricardo. Ricardo squirmed in his seat, watching the offers barely rise, insufficient to cover his debts. His desperation was palpable, his hands clenching into fists under the table. Seconds felt like hours, each beat of his heart a tolling bell. "Going once, going twice," the auctioneer exclaimed, his gavel already raised, about to descend for the final strike. Ricardo's heart pounded, his hopes vanishing like sand through his fingers. Suddenly, a firm, decisive hand rose from the back of the room, stopping the gavel in midair, a gesture of authority that cut everyone's breath. A murmur of astonishment and confusion swept through the room, like a wave of surprise. All eyes turned in unison. Elena, Camilla's lawyer, entered first, her demeanor professional and her face expressionless. Behind her, Camila Morales, dressed in a tailor-made suit of deep blue, simple yet with a sober elegance that enhanced her slender figure. Her hair, previously tied in a simple ponytail for work, now fell in soft waves over her shoulders, shining under the light. Her gaze, calm but with an ironclad resolve, with a confidence they had never seen in her, was that of a transformed, powerful woman. And closing the entrance, with an imposing presence that radiated power and authority, Mr. Alejandro Vargas, the billionaire CEO of Vargas Enterprises. His white hair gleamed under the spotlights. Ricardo Montalvo's face contorted into a grimace of incredulity, then uncontrollable fury, his complexion turning a dark purple. Marina, who was with her father, sprang to her feet, her eyes wide, her mouth open in an O of astonishment. "Security, get this intruder out. And her lawyer and this meddling old man. This is a private auction, Camilla. You're a busybody. How dare you?" Her voice was a choked growl, tinged with uncontrollable panic and fury. But Mr. Vargas, unperturbed, calmly raised a hand, a gesture that stopped any attempt at intervention. "There will be no need for security, young Montalvo. We are here because this private auction is an opportunity for justice, finally, to be served. And Ms. Morales has every right to be here more than anyone." His voice, deep and resonant, instantly silenced everyone present, his authority undeniable. Elena stepped forward, placing a stack of documents on the table, right in front of Ricardo and Marina. The papers, thick and full of stamps, seemed to weigh a ton. "Mr. Montalvo, my client, Camila Morales, has been a victim of your abuses and your wrongful dismissal a year ago, an act of pure cruelty. But even more seriously, we have gathered irrefutable evidence of your illicit activities and how the mansion now being auctioned was obtained through deception, fraud, and dubious financial maneuvers over the years. And, by the way, the lender, Mr. Guzman, should also review the documentation of his own loan. There are inconsistencies, concealment of information, and potential fraud in his own contract, Mr. Guzman, which would directly implicate him." The mention of fraud made Guzman's face tense. His eyes widened in shock, panic reflecting in them. Ricardo and Marina paled even further, their faces now ash-colored. Then, Camilla stepped forward, her figure slender yet imposing. Her voice, calm but with a firmness that surprised everyone, resonated through the room. She was not the timid, humiliated Camilla of before. She was a reborn woman, full of power and purpose. "Allow me to illustrate, to everyone present, the true story behind this mansion," she said, her voice clear and resonant, filled with an authority that was not just money, but wisdom and truth. "A year ago, Mr. Montalvo threw me out of my home, the only one I had ever known, with 24 hours' notice. He humiliated me, scorned me, treated me like trash. He left me and my family on the street, with nowhere to go. But what he didn't know is that, in his excessive greed and blind arrogance, he exposed his own weaknesses. The mansion being auctioned today is the result of a predatory loan, yes, but also a series of scams that Mr. Montalvo has committed over the years, with a systematic pattern of deception. I have the irrefutable evidence, and it is here for the world to see. With a wave of her hand, Leo, who had discreetly positioned himself next to a projector, connected his own tablet to the main screen in the room. He projected excerpts from that Operation Phoenix file, diagrams of illegal money flows connecting offshore accounts, compromising emails with instructions to hide funds, and, to Ricardo's horror, the letter where he openly mocked Mr. Vargas for the forgiven debt. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. The figures, the names, the dates, everything was there, exposed to light. An engineer from Global Tech, his face blank and eyes wide, murmured breathlessly, "My God, it's so obvious now. It all fits." The room filled with whispers, gasps of astonishment, and exclamations of indignation, the revelation of her talent. Camilla paused, her eyes fixed on Ricardo Montalvo, a gaze that conveyed a mixture of past pain and present triumph. And now, the part Mr. Montalvo thought I would never understand. She switched the screen to a complex financial analysis, broken down so that even a neophyte could understand it. She explained, with astonishing eloquence and remarkable precision, how Montalvo's loan was a death trap, how his investments had been part of a crumbling pyramid scheme, and how his supposed fortune had vanished long before the mortgage foreclosure, being just a facade. My mind, which you deemed useless and simple, could see the hidden patterns in your numbers, the web of deceptions, what you refused to see, or couldn't, blinded by greed. Her voice resonated with undeniable authority. Real-time reactions. Ricardo Montalvo. His reaction was a spiraling descent. From initial fury, where he tried to yell at those present, "Security! Get this intruder out! It's a conspiracy! Blackmail! It's all lies." He descended into complete disbelief. His jaw trembled uncontrollably, a nervous tic. When Camilla presented the irrefutable evidence, his face turned completely pale. His eyes became bloodshot and swollen. He tried once more to interrupt, stammering, "This is a slander, lies, a fraud. She has no valid proof. I am Ricardo Montalvo." But his voice utterly broke, turning into a pathetic squeal, and his entire body trembled uncontrollably, a victim of uncontrollable panic that devoured him. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead and continuously dripped down his temples, falling onto his immaculate designer shirt, staining it. He felt trapped, cornered, mercilessly exposed to the world. His image as a clean and powerful businessman shattered completely. Marina Montalvo. Her expression shifted from initial arrogance and dismissive boredom to complete shock, and then to an abject terror that petrified her. Her eyes widened excessively, her pupils dilated with horror. She tried to stand up, perhaps to lunge at Camilla in a fit of rage. But one of Vargas's discreet bodyguards stopped her with a firm hand on her shoulder, with an imperceptible gesture. "It's not true. She's an employee, a nobody, an insignificant one. An imposter. It's a trick, Dad. It's all a farce." Her voice was a hysterical, high-pitched shriek, devoid of all authority, full of despair. She sought an escape, a denial, anything that would save her from the ignominy that consumed her. Tears welled up in her eyes, not from sadness or regret, but from pure rage, frustration, and humiliation. Mr. Santiago Guzman, the lender. His face, initially impassive and severe, a mask of professionalism, transformed into one of deep concern and surprise. His eyes opened, then narrowed in concentration as Camilla spoke, absorbing every word and every number, the implication of the evidence piercing his mind. Upon seeing the projected evidence, a hint of panic and betrayal crossed his eyes. His hand went to his tie knot, which suddenly seemed to be suffocating him. He looked at his own lawyers, who nodded their heads, confirming that the situation was serious and that Montalvo had gotten them into legal trouble. He had been deceived by Montalvo, and now his reputation and his businesses were also at risk. A silent fury grew in his gaze. Other board members and spectators. A muffled murmur turned into a chorus of astonished whispers, then exclamations of surprise, and finally cries of indignation. The faces changed from polite boredom to absolute shock, from skepticism to furious condemnation. Mobile phones were raised everywhere, recording the drama in real time. An executive rose from his seat, his face flushed with rage, and shouted, "Fraud! This is fraud!" Everyone's gaze fixed on Ricardo and Marina Montalvo, now exposed, humiliated, cornered. The power dynamic reversed instantaneously. Camilla, the nobody of the family, emerged as the most powerful figure in the room, her voice a sentence, her presence an unbreakable authority. While Camilla concluded her presentation, a chorus of indignation arose. Some shareholders stood up, demanding explanations, calling for arrests, their voices drowning out Evelyn's desperate attempts to defend herself. Montalvo Holdings shares, projected in real time on an auxiliary screen, plummeted, a dizzying drop reflecting imminent ruin. The board chairman, pale and trembling, announced an immediate investigation and the suspension of the entire board of directors. The roar of justice had begun, and it was deafening. The police, discreetly present at the request of Alistair and Clara, who had alerted their contacts in the press and authorities, moved to escort the Montalvos out of the hall, their faces distorted by defeat, their bodies trembling with pure humiliation. The fall of the Montalvos was a spectacle as brutal and public as their arrogance had been relentless, a downward spiral that would drag them to utter ignominy. The media, previously tamed by Ricardo and Evelyn's public relations campaigns, savored the scandal, publishing sensational headlines and revealing every detail of their fraud. The video of Camilla exposing the evidence went viral within hours, transforming the nobody employee into a global symbol of justice and ethics. The legal ramifications were relentless. The Securities and Exchange Commission launched a thorough investigation, followed by the Public Prosecutor's Office with unusual swiftness, driven by the compelling evidence and media pressure. Ricardo was arrested that same night, his face haggard, his gaze lost, as officers handcuffed him before the relentless lens of television cameras waiting at the hall's exit. Marina, with her distraught face and empty eyes, was implicated in the fraudulent conspiracy and also faced charges. Her bail a fleeting mockery of the justice that loomed over her. The Montalvo mansion, once a symbol of their power, became a crime scene, raided by police in search of more evidence. The trials were long and highly publicized, revealing every sordid detail of their modus operandi, from stock price manipulation to the exploitation of their overseas programmers. The loss of properties was dramatic. The mansion, foreign villas, yachts, art collections, which included stolen and falsified pieces. Everything was seized to compensate victims of the fraud, including former investors and employees, and to pay multi-million-dollar fines. The Montalvo fortune, accumulated with greed and deception, dissolved in a whirlwind of debts and convictions. Bankruptcy was total, leaving the family in absolute economic destitution, stripped of every privilege and luxury. Social ruin pursued them like a relentless shadow. Ricardo and Marina's former friends, those who laughed at cruel jokes about Camilla, now turned their backs on them, avoiding them in public as if they were pariahs. Invitations to galas and charity events disappeared. Their names became synonymous with scam. Exclusion was visceral. Exclusive clubs banned them, their accounts at high-fashion stores were canceled, and the few servants they had left abandoned them in search of more stable and morally clean jobs. Ricardo, after a plea agreement, was sentenced to a long prison term. His new reality was a cold cell. Far from luxuries and comforts, his body emaciated, his gaze sunken, his spirit broken by defeat. Marina, though not fully imprisoned, lived under house arrest and then, once free, was forced to live in a modest apartment in an anonymous neighborhood, working jobs she considered degrading, a shadow of her former arrogance. One day she was seen in a supermarket, pushing a cart, her clothes no longer designer, her face reflecting the bitterness and despair of one who has lost everything, even their pride. The world that once revered them now despised them, and the fall of the Montalvo family was a cruel reminder that impunity has a limit, and that justice, though sometimes delayed, does not forget those who build themselves on lies and the harm of others. The Montalvo surname, once uttered with reverence and power, was now whispered with contempt. Camilla's triumph, in contrast, was as resplendent as the dignity she had regained and the truth she had unearthed. Her rise was meteoric, not only as an entrepreneur, but as a beacon of ethics and resilience in an often gray industry. Once the legal hurricane had passed, Camilla's true ability came to light. The media, which had previously seen her as the vengeful employee, now hailed her as a business visionary and a leader of corporate ethics. The most prestigious investment firms and business banks sought her out with unimaginable offers to replicate her success. But Camilla had her own vision, forged in years of contempt and observation. With the unconditional support of Elena, her lawyer, and the invaluable advice of Mr. Alejandro Vargas and Leo, the ethical hacker, Camilla led the acquisition of what remained of Montalvo Holdings, now a ruined company. The irony was delicious and deeply satisfying. The same woman whom Ricardo had considered a nobody and incapable of business became the CEO of the very company that had belonged to him, rebuilding it from its rotten foundations with transparency, honesty, and a philosophy centered on true innovation and human value. The company, now renamed Integrity Holdings, was not just an industry giant, but a global model of ethics, social responsibility, and employee-centered design, a tangible manifestation of the vision Ricardo never could see. The impact on her own family was the true crown of her success. Grandma Elena, with her health improved thanks to the medical care they could now afford and her spirit renewed, moved into a small, bright apartment especially adapted within the very mansion, a quiet and light-filled space. Her smile was now constant, and her eyes shone with pride for her granddaughter, feeling finally at peace. Liliana, for her part, received a full scholarship from the Vargas Foundation, driven by Alejandro, to study music at a prestigious academy in Vienna. Her childhood dream come true. Her letters arrived full of gratitude and promises of future melodies, from her violin that now sang with joy. Camilla, who never forgot her humble origins or the humiliation she had suffered, dedicated herself full-time to the foundation. Now a recognized philanthropist and tireless advocate for human rights and social justice. She gave inspiring talks in schools, sharing her story with a humility that moved everyone, a living testament to resilience. There were significant reunions that marked her path. One day, at a fundraising event for the foundation, elegantly organized in the very gardens she once cleaned, she met one of the Montalvo mansion's former cooks, a kind woman who had always treated her with kindness and discretion. The woman, seeing Camilla in her new role, with her confident bearing, innate elegance, and aura of authority, approached with tears in her eyes, unable to contain her emotion. "Miss Camilla, you don't know the immense joy I feel seeing you. I always knew, that you had a great destiny, a special light. Thank you for everything you do now." Camilla warmly embraced her, feeling the deep connection to her past. Some time later, Marina Montalvo herself, stripped of her pride, penniless, and facing the harsh reality of her new life, came to the foundation for help with her head bowed. Camilla, with a heart at peace and without resentment, did not deny her assistance. "Everyone who needs help will receive it here, Miss Montalvo, regardless of your past or what you may have done to us. This foundation is for everyone." Marina's gaze, at first defiant and filled with shame, now filled with genuine tears and a hint of regret, a rare emotion on her face. It was the sweetest vindication, beyond revenge. Camilla's life was a living testament that character transcends wealth, that true nobility is not inherited, but forged in adversity, and that integrity is the most valuable asset. Her new office, now in what was once Ricardo Montalvo's lavish study, had a panoramic view of the flourishing garden and the city. But on her desk, she always kept a small object from her old life, a small, dented and worn brass watering can, a constant reminder of where she came from, and that her true strength lay in her ability to transform what was broken and humiliated into something new, vital and beautiful. Her inner peace was palpable, her joy contagious, her purpose unshakable. She had found not only professional and economic success, but deep happiness alongside her family, and a purpose that transcended numbers and contracts, a legacy of justice and hope for future generations, proving that dignity always prevails. And so, my dear friend, the story of Camilla Morales became a whisper of hope in every corner of the city and beyond. It was living proof that human dignity cannot be bought or sold, that compassion is a force more powerful than greed, and that perseverance, that silent obstinacy in the face of adversity, always finds its just reward. Integrity, the value of second chances, and the fact that a person's true worth lies in their character, not their status or appearances. Camilla, whom they thought a simple gardener, whom they threw out onto the street, not only regained her dignity, but built an empire of goodness, proving that he who laughs last laughs best, and that sometimes the house you lose opens the door to a world of infinite possibilities.